Okay, we'll get started. Morning, everybody. Thanks for making it after the party. I heard some of you guys had slightly too much dancing going on. As my team, I think, included, right, James? Yeah. So anyways, good morning. Glad to have you guys here. I'm Jim Nasr. This is my colleague and really the brainware behind what we're talking about, Ben Chevallereau, right? Chevallereau. You know, it's French. So we're going to talk about something new today. It's really brand new. It's so new that it's not really been announced yet. We're it's a preamble to the announcement, if you like. It's talking about really a brand new, I guess, way of interacting with Alfresco. Specifically with SharePoint in mind, we have extended a solution for Drupal as well as an example. But really we're going to focus on SharePoint. SharePoint Office 365 is a focus, and it's very much around using CMIS to interact with Alfresco. So just a quick introduction to the solution. Really, what is it? Essentially, as I mentioned, it's a way to very easily, and using SharePoint protocols and SharePoint usability to interact with Alfresco. Using CMIS, or very much we, as in really all of us here in this crowd, kind of proponents of the CMIS compliance, CMIS being the content management interoperability services API. And really the idea here is let's make the SharePoint user community easily interact with other ECMs, including and specifically Alfresco. Obviously, that's an area of particular interest for us. Let's make it easier for them to, using the exact same usability and approach that folks using Microsoft products are used to, Office 365, interact with Alfresco. Make it standards-based, make it open, put this as part of, and in fact we made this, a lot of this code is going to be part of the Apache chemistry project. Provide opportunity for other partners, our buddies here, from Ixis and other places, to add to it, make it better, make it richer, and then really kind of comply to the open source spirit of what we're trying to do with Alfresco, but also really try and build a solution that makes it easy to go forward with the SharePoint, particularly SharePoint and Microsoft solution sets. That's really it. It's very much about, to begin with, very much about the core document manipulation features that you'd expect to have, the basic document services, file, create and view and annotate and search and things like that. And then in time, we certainly expect it to go beyond that to potentially additional features such as more workflow features, records management perhaps, and such. All right. I think all of us here probably know quite a bit about CMIS. I'm not really going to belabor it. The only interesting point here and the vision, I think John may have shared this, John Newton, yesterday, is really this idea that the plumbing is already there, right? So if we're going to have, really the whole idea with the solution is by being compliant to CMIS, we can extend it easily to other ECM platforms, other applications, right? Which I think is quite self-explanatory, I think, for this crowd. So really the so what question, all right, okay, great, this is fine, CMIS, and you're doing something funky, but what's the real business purpose? So really it's this idea that, and kind of goes back to John's keynote yesterday, is we can increase adoption, right? And if you remember in kind of the pillars, there's the four, pillars maybe is an extension, but the four rectangles that John had, kind of the usability, the user component, right, is a critical part. I think all of us in the ECM space see that. If you don't have the user in mind, user adoption as a kind of a critical evaluation of what we're trying to do, it's just not going to happen. People won't use it, right? And this is very much the idea, is we're going to ease adoption. We acknowledge, all of us do, that SharePoint, Office 365 are legitimate, very large platforms that are out there and customers are using them. So let's just make it easier for them to interact with other ECMs, specifically Alfresco in this case. But really the thing that actually kind of very much struck a chord to me yesterday was the comment that John made about innovation, the speed of open source, which to me is the heart of this this solution? What's the spirit behind it, and really kind of going forward? Because this being open, this kind of extending the range of repositories that you can connect to, eliminating those content silos, and really innovating. But we have a number of us, Alfresco, ourselves, many other folks in the community, innovating around this. Now you're innovating at the speed of open source. And that's the marker beyond the proprietary solutions, right? And I think even folks at Microsoft probably would be interested and excited by that, because it's extending their solution set. So that's really it. It's kind of all the things that I think are more or less common sense. But to us, if we're going in front of a client, it's really helping them get much more bang for the buck from the investment they're making. All right. So some use cases, there are many that could come to mind as obvious ones, such as collaboration. I think SharePoint certainly is a good collaborative experience for a lot of users. Again, if we look at kind of what is Alfresco potentially much better at than SharePoint, as an example. So certainly if you're thinking secure, distributed, scalable content repositories, I think Alfresco, most of us and many analysts, even the Gartner folks, may well agree that that's a better solution, right? It's going to scale better. If you think about records retention, records management, I think we heard the customer folks downstairs talk about how big of a challenge it is, right? When the flooding comes and all your paper goes, and you really need to have electronic records. Alfresco is good at that. I think in many cases better than SharePoint. But there are other areas certainly where you can see SharePoint from a usability and the Office products as a better solution. So we see that, but I think ultimately what we see is this idea that you can build line of business applications pretty quickly, where you take the best of the both environments. Maybe you take SharePoint for your basic collaboration interface and your kind of point of entry, portal or whatever, and then you have in the back end, you have Alfresco, where you have your documents, your repository, kind of core repository. And we're going to be demonstrating some simple examples of that in a little bit. One that we have kind of thought about a little bit is around vendor management, and Ben will actually do a couple of little snippets on that in a few minutes. But this is the idea that you have, using a SharePoint interface, you go in there as a customer service representative or what have you, or as a supplier chain person, and then you basically do simple searches through SharePoint, but then behind the scenes, all the information really is in Alfresco. So you're manipulating information in Alfresco. It's a quick system to get up and running. It's a good example of what can be done with this solution. All right, that being said, I think I'm done with my waffling, and Ben can step in and do the real stuff. Thank you.
So my name is Ben, so I'm French, so if you don't understand me, just ask me to repeat if you need more clarification. So now I'm going to demonstrate really what we did in this project, so a quick summary of what I'm going to talk. So first, what did we implement? What does it look like? How did we do? How can you customize it? And where can you use it?
Sorry.
So what did we implement? So first we implemented CMIS 1.1 user interface with jQuery, HTML, and CSS. So most of you already know probably CMIS. CMIS is a standard protocol to integrate ECM solution. 1.1, it's the release that has been provided, I think, early this year, using only jQuery, HTML, and CSS. So it's only standard web technologies. We don't use any C#, we don't use any .NET. Technical constraint was it has to be reusable and comprehensible and customizable by any web developer that knows a little bit about JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So really simple technology. And it looks like that, but we'll have a demonstration later. As well, we implemented an Alfresco filtered search component based on Solar. So the two previous components are compatible with any CMIS repository. This one is only compliant with Alfresco. As you can see, it looks like a lot Alfresco filtered search component, and so we just imitate the component available in Alfresco Share to be reusable in any web container. But again, we'll see that later. And after we package these two things in different containers, so we package that in SharePoint 2013. We really focused on this web container. SharePoint 2010, Office 365, Alfresco share on Drupal. So because it was done with only simple web technologies, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, it has been really easy to repackage that in different platforms. So now, what does it look like? A demonstration, it will be easier. So I recorded a quick video. Whoa. It's not going to be easy. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going just to change the resolution. Maybe it can. If I do that, no. Yeah. You know what? For the demonstration, I'm just going to play the video directly. Even not. I'm really sorry for that. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So this is SharePoint 2013. So directly in SharePoint 2013, you have a login dialog. You have to fill your username, your password. You can click on Remember Me, like that. Your username and password are stored in SharePoint. Automatically, you are so connected. You have on the left side the browser component, on the right side the library component. So depending on the user connected, the list of action definitely is not the same. So here I'm connecting as a beacher. I'm browsing my folder. I can create a new folder. I can rename folder. The component on the right side is synchronized with the one on the left side. So for example, if I rename with my new folder, the left component is updated. You can upload documents directly in SharePoint. So everything is stored behind Alfresco. So you can use drag and drop documents. So here I'm uploading 3 PDF files. For each file that I just uploaded, I have a list of standard actions like checkout, check-in, cancel checkout, or update. You can as well view details of a specific document, so it's the standard view of a document. It's possible as well to check all versions of a specific document and to download each version. You are able as well directly in SharePoint to preview PDF document. So you don't have to download it. It's you can do that directly within SharePoint. And it's working with a complete PDF as well. So it's using pdf.js. After that, you can search as well in Alfresco. So you have a full text search. I can search for the keyword Alfresco, and I get all documents with Alfresco in the content. I can use as well advanced search form, and I can search, for example, all documents with Alfresco in the name of the document, and I can use date filter, for example, to search for the modification date. And we use as well the my checkout document. So it's exactly the same component, but it's not the same configuration. So again, you see the user doesn't have to re-authenticate. Username and password are stored in SharePoint, and the user can check can see his checkout document. We have as well the filtered search component that we told before that is only compatible with Alfresco. So again, you can search for the keyword Alfresco, and you can filter by, we have file type, we have size, created date, creator, modification date. It's really standard properties. And you know how it works. You click on different filters, and the list of results is updated. And after, you can sort the result, by properties. So let's go back to the presentation. Yes. So what today we can do with this component? So we are able to log into any CMIS 1.1 repository. We can browse the repository. We can create new folder, rename folder, delete folder. We can display documents. We can list all documents stored in a folder, display details, download document, preview PDF document, delete document, search full text and advanced search, and upload documents. So it's standard features, but you can do everything directly in SharePoint. So now, how did we do that really quickly? So a quick overview of the architecture. So as I said before, we are using the protocol CMIS 1.1. On top of that, we build a JavaScript library. Like that, we can connect to any CMS repository. After, we created just two UI components, the browser component and the library component. And after, we just had to package that in different platforms. So to SharePoint 2013 WebParts, SharePoint 2010 WebParts, Office 365 AppParts, Drupal plugin, and as well Alfresco module. And we could continue the list. Today we just did the first one. For the filtered search, so we are connected only to Alfresco. We developed some web services that you need to install in your Alfresco instance. And following the same process, we developed a faceted search component or filtered search component. And we just repackage this UI component in different containers. So SharePoint 2013 again, SharePoint 2010, AppParts, Drupal, and Alfresco. So now, how can you customize it? So one of the goals of this project was to be able to, configure it depending on your business, your company, your use case. I'm not going to explain really deeply how can you customize it by modifying this file or so. I'm going to explain really the different methods that you can use to customize it. And after, I will show an example of customization. So first, you can use CSS, standard web technologies, to change document type icon, to reorganize the detailed view of documents or apply any temps, so it's just CSS. Everything is based on JavaScript code, so you can configure the library or the browser. So you can decide to focus on a specific folder instead of displaying the entire Alfresco repository. You can decide just to open a specific folder. You can configure how a property will be displayed. The main example is for date. If you are working in US or if you are working in Europe, you are not going to display the date using the same format. And potentially, you want to display dates using a specific format, but maybe a birth date, you want to use another format. So you can do that and configure that just using JavaScript. You can configure the behavior in a search form as well. For example, for auto-completion behavior, you can use date picker, you can use anything. For example, if you, after I will present an invoice use case. So for example, if you have an invoice number field, you can decide to integrate that, for example, with Salesforce or any tool to be able, to auto-complete that and to check that the invoice ID already exists or not. And you can add as well new action for each document. And I will demonstrate the edit online, for example, edit online feature. And the most important way to customize that is using HTML template. So HTML, it's very simple. You can configure everything in the library just by adding a piece of HTML code somewhere in the page. And for example, in SharePoint, you don't even have to repackage everything, re-customize everything, reinstall everything. You just have to pass a piece of HTML code in the page. So it's really, really simple. So you can use a table header and table row to configure, which column you want in the library component. You can change the node detail template per type. So if I have, a generic content, I want this list of properties. But if I want to display details of an invoice, I want to display, custom metadata. So provided by your custom model. And as well, we have the advanced search form template. So in the quick demonstration, we have only advanced search form for content and folder. And you can as well create advanced search form for your custom type in Alfresco. So this one is just, explaining how we use HTML templates. So we have generic templates provided by the library, but just by adding a piece of HTML template in your page, it just overrides the generic template. So As I said before, I'm going to demonstrate an invoice use case, and here is all customization that we did in this use case. So first, instead of displaying the entire repository, we just opened the folder invoices. We added template to change the document list view, so on the right side we have custom metadata. We had template to change the detailed view of an invoice to display custom metadata as well. We added an invoice search form. We configured the search form to use date picker. We added as well custom icons. And we used currency symbols instead of currency code if possible. So instead of displaying EUR, we just use the euro symbol. So what does it look like? So, can I open, yeah, this one. So it's exactly the same interface. You have to log in with your username and your password. As I said before, we focus on the folder invoices. On the right side, we can see that we don't have standard properties, but we have invoice number, invoice date, amount, and seller. Obviously, you can sort on all properties. It's possible as well to disable that if you don't want to offer that, if you don't want to sort. It's the same component, so you can still use the PDF preview. You can display the detail of each document. So now we are displaying invoice detail. So we have the invoice number, seller, and so on. It's possible as well to do what I'm going to do after that. Okay, so we have invoices. Oh yeah, so we added the advanced search form for invoice. So now you can search on an invoice number and invoice seller. So here I'm going to search all invoice for the seller Adidas. I'm going as well to search, for example, on the invoice number. And again, this has been done only using HTML. And after that, I'm going as well to be able to search on date, so I can search, on anything: date, number, integer, amount. So it's probably a double or something like that. So we can see on the amount column as well that we use symbols when it's possible. So we have the dollar symbols on the euro symbol. And again, this has been done. You don't need to repackage everything to have that. You just need to add some HTML code in your page. You can do exactly the same with the filtered search component. So instead of having generate filter on the right side, now you have custom filter like seller. So here I'm searching for invoice, Adidas invoice, and I can filter by currency, I can filter by amount, I can filter by anything. You can just configure that really easily. It's possible as well on the right side, you can see on this part, so it's possible to use an HTML template for that. So instead of displaying standard property, we display custom metadata properties because it's an invoice, so we display the amount, the size, and the seller. So let's continue. Yeah, next. Oh, okay. I explained before, it's possible to add custom action. One of the custom actions that we did for Alfresco. So CMIS doesn't really provide anything for edit online, but Alfresco does. So we decided to create an edit online action for Alfresco. So, whoop. So if you are in SharePoint again, so I open a site and I did a quick, really simple icon. Do you want to edit your document? So I'm editing a Word document. It's downloading the document. It's opening Word. You just need, to edit the document. It's really like Alfresco Share. You edit your document. You add some text. You remove some text. You do exactly what you want. Blah, 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 I'm changing the style. And when I'm trying to close my file, it just, saves saves the file back to Alfresco. And so you can edit online directly from SharePoint, documents stored in Alfresco. And if I download it back, we can see that my document has been properly saved in Alfresco. So now, where can you use this component? So I demonstrated that it's possible to use this component in SharePoint 2013. It's possible as well to use it in SharePoint 2010, so I didn't do a demonstration, but if you want one, it's possible. So exactly the same component with exactly the same configuration. It looks like exactly the same. It's just the web container that is not the same one. In Office 365, so again, same component. You can log into any Alfresco repository. You have exactly the same features with the filtered search component. Drupal, we wanted to prove that it's not only working with SharePoint technologies, it's working as well with any really web container. So in Drupal, we implemented exactly the same features. We implemented that as well in Alfresco. So if, for example, if you want the filtered search in your Alfresco repository without updating, you potentially can do that. So after that, we can add that in any web container like Liferay, Edzo Platform, WebSphere, WordPress, Confluent, any web container. It's possible to integrate them, but we didn't do it yet. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Any questions? If we have any time?
Let me just say something. So we've been working with Armedia on this, and so it's sort of a joint development and funding of the project as well. So our intention is to take most of what you saw and contribute it to Apache chemistry to make it an entirely open project and very liberal. And because it's a very liberal license, we've had interest both from IBM and Microsoft as well in this project. This solves a lot of IBM's problems with getting connections into FileNet and whatever from SharePoint. And it also solves a lot of problems for Microsoft as well, which they see it as an opportunity of presenting SharePoint as an interface to many different systems, and this gets it to many different ECM systems. So we haven't announced anything yet. So the announcements are coming, but that's about it. But if you are interested in this, we're packaging it to make it available onto the enterprise portal. So if you are an Alfresco customer, you can get everything that you just saw here available. And again, available on SharePoint 2010 as well as SharePoint 2013. So if you are interested, just contact me, give me your card or whatever, or you can email me at john.newton@alfresco.com. Okay.
Excellent.
So what version of Alfresco?
I'm sorry?
What version of Alfresco?
It's Alfresco 4.2 because we have to use CMIS 1.1. So CMIS 1.1 is available in Alfresco 4.1, but it's only experimental version. So definitely you should use Alfresco 4.2.
Well, actually, so I also spoke to the project lead of chemistry, who actually works for SAP, and he was saying that they have built a bridge from CMIS 1.1 to CMIS 1.0 precisely to solve the problem of how do you get access of these types of things to, well, document them only on CMIS 1.0. So theoretically, it should work against Documentum as well. And I guess I thought you demonstrated on Alfresco 4.1.
Yeah, I did. But, CMS, it works. I mean,
everybody upgrade to 4.2.
Exactly. No,
everyone's interested in that.
That's right. No, it works. It definitely works. It just, the real version is more for 4.2, but you can use 4.1 as well.
So who in this room has SharePoint in their organizations? Who in this room has a lot of SharePoint in their organizations? I think at this point as well, Armedia probably has the delivery capacity to do this. So, you know, you should probably work with these guys if you're interested in deployment. So.
Any questions? Any other questions? Yes.
Authentication, you're having to manually log in.
Yeah. So today we have we have different. You can customize that. You can use basic authentication. You can use as well the Alfresco authentication provider. We started to work on SSO, but because we wanted to be compliant with Office 365, so in a cloud environment, it's not so easy. So we really focus more on features provided by this component, but we already started to investigate on SSO features.
Yeah, authentication's probably been one of the toughest
Yeah.
elements of the whole project. They've been working with Jared Audley from Alfresco as well on getting OAuth working against Alfresco Cloud as well. So there's a lot of power in that solution.
And that's one of those features where, you know, frankly, given kind of what's core and what may be beyond core, just because there's definitely some complications and some specific considerations we have to have for that. Was there a question in the back?
I was just curious about, we had started down the road with SharePoint, and after a couple of months with the CMIS performance issues, we wound up going full Alfresco. I was just curious as to how they come along, because there were some admitted shortcomings, and we even seen some of that traffic down in the industrial development, development manuals that we're having SharePoint.
Actually, because there's another meeting going on here, I had a little bit of a hard time hearing what you were saying or asking.
I'm just curious about CMIS compliance on SharePoint. We had tried to pursue SharePoint for a couple of months and have been doing some POC work to potentially use it as an ECM solution for product rebuilding. And there were just some issues with
Which version of SharePoint?
It was 2010 at the time. 2013 was coming, but the time frame for when it would be delivered as part of Office was a bit of a concern, and we wound up going full blown with Alfresco out the box and everything we needed to do.
Well, that's a good direction.
Well, I figured you'd like that.
Excellent. So,
I mean, literally, we had like 15 tests we ran, only half could work against SharePoint, and all 15 flew through with Alfresco.
But these are SharePoint, just to clarify, this is SharePoint as a CMIS provider.
Yeah.
So they're efficient in that, but Alfresco is not.
Yeah. I really don't know what the status of CMIS support in 2013 is. They've been talking about it more. Greg, I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I've not tried it personally, but I've heard they claim it's better, but I should have, from what you said in comments, you see, and chemistry, it doesn't appear.
The original implementation of SharePoint in 2010 was actually implemented as a project in China that seemed to have no supervision whatsoever. It was sort of a stepchild of the whole thing, but they say that they were interested in support overall. But I mean, already there's been a lot of interest. We presented this to some federal agencies in DC, and there's one particular department which has absolutely enormous SharePoint capacity or whatever, but they need DAB 5015.2 compliance for the records management, and they're storing things like invoices and whatever. It's just clear that Alfresco is just a better solution, but all their users use SharePoint. So it's been pretty much, as you described it, sort of an us and them type of situation before. Now this is a more complementary type of solution. So they can continue using it and have access to it through this interface. But Alfresco is the better repository for this type of thing.
So what is the performance implications on showing these folders or documents in SharePoint versus?
We did some performance tests on really, huge to a folder with a lot of children, and with folder with a lot of documents within. It's working quite well because a lot of work is done directly on the browser, so on the client side. On the repository side, it's like using Alfresco Share. It's exactly the same, constraint. So it's only, on the browser side. A lot of work is done on the browser and SharePoint side.
I think Derek Hawley has been presenting benchmark information about how well Alfresco scales as a CMIS provider. And as Ben mentioned, this is an entirely browser-based implementation. This is HTML5 only, requires virtually nothing inside of the SharePoint server. So there's no implications on SharePoint. It's merely the traffic between the SharePoint web part or app part going against the Alfresco system. So as Ben mentioned, having tens of thousands of documents doesn't seem to affect it. It's pretty zippy. So it's very lightweight and very simple. And did you describe the architecture in terms of jQuery and all that stuff?
Yeah, really quickly, So I talked about technologies that we used and, how we package that, but I didn't explain so much.
Well, we're downstairs at our booth, so if you have additional questions, please pop by.
And please do give me your card if you are interested in trying this out as well.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks.